Coming up on today's episode of Airborne-Unlimited, Textron puts electric aircraft project on the back burner. President Trump moves Space Command to Huntsville, Alabama. 1 dead and 3 injured in MidAir at Fort Morgan Municipal. Welcome to Airborne Unlimited. I'm your host, Holland Lee. Let's get into today's stories. Textron puts electric aircraft project on the back burner. Textron eAviation is putting the development of its Nexus eVTOL aircraft on hold, meaning its first flight is no longer part of the 2025 agenda. The manufacturer claims that its current aircraft lineup takes priority. The Nexus, a 4-passenger single-pilot design designed to serve short urban routes, was slated for tethered flight testing this year. Instead, Textron has pulled and redistributed staff to other efforts, including the Pipistrel Panthera piston program, the hybrid-electric Nuva V300 drone, and flight control work at Textron eAviation in Germany. The pause is an unfortunate turn for Wichita, which Textron itself once labeled a next-gen aviation hub. Local leaders and engineers had looked to Textron's electric projects as a way to keep the air capital relevant in a changing market. Now, with workforce expansion and supplier contracts tied to Nexus development looking unstable, city officials and smaller aerospace firms are forced to reassess their place in the electric aviation supply chain. Textron's choice follows a trend of headwinds across the electric aviation sector. While its Pipistrel Velis Electro remains the only certified all-electric aircraft in production, scaling it to a bigger passenger-ready eVTOL has proven more complicated. Battery limitations and certification hurdles continue to delay the timeline, not helping investor confidence across the industry, especially with companies like Universal Hydrogen and Lilium facing repeated fallouts. After the break, Daer takes on new climate policy.
Well, hello, fellow pilot. I'm John King.
And I'm Martha King.
You know, we've all had our flying lives disrupted lately.
Well, King Schools is here to help you stay up to date with courses that you can access on your desktop, iPad, or iPhone. If you'd like a refresher or just want to expand your aviation horizons, we have a course for you.
So head over to kingschools.com/rusty today for details.
Welcome back. Now let's take a trip around the patch for some shorter stories. Daer takes on new climate policy. Daer is reforming its sustainable development strategy by working in a structured climate policy that vows to reduce carbon emissions from its operations and products while engaging suppliers and adapting sites to climate hazards. Its targets come with deadlines in 2027 and 2032. The company is aiming for a 50% reduction in operational greenhouse gas emissions by 2032, with an interim target of 23% by 2027. The plan leans on energy efficiency upgrades, wider use of sustainable aviation fuels, and investment in lighter composite materials. Boeing reveals customer of 737 MAX order. Boeing has confirmed details of an order placed in July 2025 for 30 of its 737 MAX aircraft by a previously unidentified customer. The order was placed by the Dublin, Ireland-based aircraft lessor Macquarie Air Finance, who increased its commitment to 70 of the 737 MAX aircraft. This order follows the first direct purchase by Macquarie from Boeing in 2024. The lessor owns a stable of over 300 aircraft with jets on lease to 84 airlines across 48 countries. Grand jury indicts Kansas City man for aiming laser at aircraft. Aaron Randall Class was charged by a grand jury in a 1-count indictment returned by a federal grand jury for aiming a laser pointer at an aircraft. The indictment was unsealed and made public after the arrest of the 53-year-old from North Kansas City, Missouri. The indictment alleges that on or about November 23, 2024, Class knowingly aimed the beam of a laser pointer at an aircraft in the jurisdiction of the United States at the time. Spirit receives go-ahead to fly through its bankruptcy. Low-cost carrier Spirit Airlines has received the green light to continue scheduled flight operations as normal while under Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The new filing comes just 5 months after the carrier completed its restructuring process from last year. The court's first-day motions allow Spirit to keep up its scheduled passenger operations while reworking the behind-the-scenes details, including making cuts to its fleet and maintenance agreements. Spirit also launched a dedicated website to reassure passengers and investors that this filing is about building a, quote, stronger foundation and future. That's it for today's trip around the patch. Let's get back to the rest of the news. Space Command moves to Huntsville, Alabama. President Donald Trump announced on September 2nd that the U.S. Space Command will be relocated from Colorado to Huntsville, Alabama. The city has a long and rich history going back to the 50s and has been a major hub for space and defense companies. President Trump made the announcement in a press conference in the Oval Office. The president said, quote, "I'm thrilled to report that the U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City," end quote. Huntsville history inspired its longtime nickname as Rocket City. It's the home of the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, as well as the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. It's also where the U.S. military's earliest rockets and ballistic missiles were built and tested, at the U.S. Army's Redstone Arsenal. The Marshall Space Flight Center was established by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1960 and was the site of development of the Mercury Redstone rocket that launched America's first astronauts into space. It's also where the Saturn family of rockets was developed that lifted the Apollo astronauts on their way to the moon. After these messages, 1 dead and 3 injured in midair at Fort Morgan Municipal.
For over 30 years, the massive Sport Plane Resource Guide has provided expert, credible information, evaluations, and critical analysis of all that the sport aviation world has to offer. The all-new digital Sport Plane Resource Guide is coming with extensive multimedia features that are constantly updated, an even more comprehensive online guide to all things sport aviation. Available soon. www.sportplane.com.
Direct Fly USA proudly introduces the new Alto NG, a single-engine, 2-seat light sport aircraft for the North American market. This simple, all-metal aircraft design provides low-maintenance cost, easy, comfortable access, and responsive flight controls. Equipped with the Rotax 912 engine and a ballistic parachute, the Alto NG is reliable and safe. Learn more about the Alto NG at directflyusa.com.
Welcome back. 1 dead and 3 injured at midair at Fort Morgan Municipal. 1 person was killed and 3 others injured in a midair collision at the Fort Morgan Municipal Airport in Fort Morgan, Colorado, at about 10:40 a.m. on Sunday, August 31st. The 2 aircraft, an extra EA-300LC and a Cessna 172M, each had 2 occupants and were attempting to land on runway 14 at the uncontrolled, non-towered airport when they collided near the runway threshold. Kristen Morris, an aerobatic competitor and member of the International Aerobatic Club, was in the extra and sustained fatal injuries. The other occupant of the extra was transported to a local hospital for treatment, and both occupants of the Skyhawk received minor injuries. Both aircraft crashed and caught fire after the collision and were destroyed. The airport remains closed as both the FAA and NTSB are conducting an investigation into the accident. ADSB data indicates that the Skyhawk was on a straight-in approach to runway 14, while the extra was on a left base to final turn to the same runway. The Skyhawk was registered to the Bell Ornithopters Flying Club based at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport in Broomfield, Colorado, which was its departure airport for this flight. The extra was registered to an LLC and based at FMM. And that's our show for today. You can catch episodes of Airborne on YouTube, Roku, or Fire TV. Just search for Aero-News or Airborne. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Thanks for watching.